Welcome to MojoTalks. Talking about Legion today on WatchClub, the show where we break down the biggest shows on TV. We got episode 10.
Episode 10.
Of season 2, chapter 18.
The penultimate of the season.
Joined as always by Christopher Mason.
That's me.
And we are going to talk a little bit about what we thought about the episode.
Yeah. Oh, first of all, hey, in case fans didn't hear, we got a third season.
We
left off wondering if there's going to be a third season, and later that day, we found out, yes.
It's like John Landgraf was watching our podcast and was like, we need to answer this question, this
That's
burning
right.
question. So what did you think overall of this episode, going into the finale?
So, I enjoyed watching it, as I always have with the show. The thought occurred to me, this is the first time that I wouldn't blame people for giving up on the show, right? I am still with it, but here's the thing. I feel like up until now, the confusion has been like intellectual, right? Like, what are they doing? What did that mean? Why am I seeing this? Why is John Hamm voicing over these philosophical lessons? And so it's been like an intellectual confusion, but the emotional core, I think, has always been there. And that, to me, has been Sid and David love each other, right? If anything, in the last few episodes, they've like reinforced that in the last half season by saying like, you know, these are two damaged people, right, but they found each other. It's a miracle they found each other and they love each other. It's for real. Maybe, you know, they have slightly different ideas about what that means, but they're gonna fight to save love. And now, in this episode, David's lost it. Sid's turned on him. I don't even know who to root for anymore. You know, everyone who was part of a plan got into position and failed, mostly.
Yeah.
Not Lenny. So let me ask you, who is the hero now?
That's a really good question. I think this show plays fast and loose with those kinds of dynamics. We even had Farouk saying, like, for millennia, Amal Farouk was the bad guy, and then you're telling me, like, they are playing that up a little bit.
I mean,
but
go ahead.
But that being said, I don't think that they've done an adequate job in answering that question. And maybe that's purposeful. Maybe they are intentionally leading us into the finale, trying to make us think, well, who is the hero? Like we talked a little bit before about, you know, so far we've got Carrie and Carrie are still pure at heart, as far as we can tell, but we don't have a lot of stake in their overall story.
What are they fighting for?
Yeah, we don't really know what
each other.
Ultimately, they're fighting for each other.
Carrie just likes to punch things.
Yeah, and she's very good at it, as we saw in this episode.
She's awesome. I am a bigger and bigger fan of Amber Midthunder as Carrie.
Yeah, she's killing it. But yeah, this show continues to baffle, continues to subvert expectations. I was kind of sitting in the seat that you're sitting in, not literally. I was still sitting in this seat last week.
That, yeah.
But I was kind of like, I get it. Like the frustration with this season, it's purposefully challenging the audience. And I think I'm willing to strap in and be like, okay, they're gonna land somewhere in the next episode.
Me too. I'm still strapped in because I think that the creators of the show are very conscious of like the state of narrative.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so too.
These linear stories with like, you know, a modern hero that overcomes an obstacle, they don't work quite so well in, you know, this 21st century or whatever you want to call this era. And so I'm really curious to see how they pull off this hero switch. I feel like that's kind of what's happening.
Look at him. You're a man. The things he'll do to a friend.
That's really interesting. And like the other thing about that is, in the age of the superhero story, like in the last month we've had Deadpool 2 and Infinity War to come out. And at the same time, Legion is on TV doing stuff that neither of those properties would ever go near, in like subverting the expectations in a way that isn't just, here's a shocking moment for a payoff later on. The whole way through it's been subversive, and it's been a deconstruction of the things we expect out of a superhero narrative. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they still have to deliver on the emotional story.
They do.
And I'm not saying that they haven't, but this episode really threw a wrench in that ultimate like upward motion towards that unity between David and Sid.
Things look more uncertain than ever,
Yes.
I would say. And in order for us to really get into this, I feel like we have to go down the rabbit hole, which, hey, that was not the very first image, but one of the first images that we have is this hole. A rabbit comes out of it, and we all go down the rabbit hole.
And I love the little detail of the what do you call those things? Not a clog.
The plug?
A plug, yeah.
Yeah, the
The
stopper.
pink stopper was a really weird thing to just keep cutting back to. Like, we saw quite a lot of it, and it was such an interesting design choice to have the marble, like little beads.
Yeah, it was
and the
very
pink
realistic.
color. It was really interesting. What did you think about the rabbit hole of it all?
I mean, I think I just summed it up. I don't think I need to say more about that.
Fair.
We're down the rabbit hole. Things are changing. I don't know what more to say. But hey, the first image of the episode. What do we see?
Well, we finally got to see something that fans had been like talking about for quite a long time, is that ultimately Legion is a show based on an X-Men character, and we finally got to see David look like his comic book counterpart. We saw him with the big hair. He was in an outfit that we've seen Legion before. I believe in X-Men Legacy was the run where we kind of saw that version of Legion.
Yep.
Really interesting to point to that as antagonist David, to create that image and then be like, this is, as they put it in the episode, Legion the World Killer, I think they called him.
That's right.
That's a really interesting way to conjure up like an image from the comics, because you're kind of messing with the reference, right? You're saying like Legion hasn't been a straightforward hero in the comics, but you're literally saying like, here is an image of David as evil.
To me, it lends a lot of weight to all the theories about the sort of comic book stories that we're going to see in this show, especially Legion's identity as someone who has multiple personas within him, who each have like different goals and powers. I think we might see more of that. And further supporting that, what do we see with the Minotaur? We see that the Minotaur all along was a minion of Farouk's. How many minions does he have? He's got, I mean, there's the devil with the yellow eyes, of course, which we assumed was his true form. He's used Lenny and Oliver as a mask. This Minotaur, the oil chicken maybe came from him?
Entirely possible.
How many different, minions, personas does he have? And if, he and David are like true antagonists, true hero and villain in like, the more conventional sense, then they have like the same powers, basically, right? And so all that supports these theories that we're going to see Legion splinter into different personalities. And that's the way that we're going.
And perhaps World Killer Legion is but one of those personalities, even though that's like a very terrifying idea, right? Like just that image alone of the opening is kind of horrifying. The idea that someone so powerful would be so willing to be destructive with their powers.
Yep.
Even Farouk, it seems like what he was really after was a power of control.
Yeah.
To be in positions of like, he was a king, he was like a ruler, he had his people. The Legion we see in the future looks like he's out for destruction and madness and chaos. And that's a really scary prospect.
For the last time, where is she?
Speaking of power, I thought it was interesting that Melanie's basic speech to Sid is power trumps love. David's going to choose power over love. And by the way, was I the only one who thought that Melanie holding Sid there, that whole A story, was kind of like Return of the Jedi, with the Emperor holding Luke, up in whatever his den was there, his throne room, whatever you want to call it, basically hammering away at his insecurities, winding him up, trying to turn him over to the dark side while his friends are like getting into position and winning or failing.
Right. That same dichotomy of like, wouldn't you rather be powerful than care about these people? The conversation works on Sid in a weird way, like just hammering home the point that David told you he was going to never lie to you and always be honest to you, and then hammering home like, here are all the dishonesties. Here are all the things that he's hidden from you. I thought that was a really effective, like, persuasive technique by Farouk as Melanie. And the weird thing about that, and it's something that's always bothered me in shows, not bothered me, but it's always stood out, is whenever they show old scenes, they always keep like the directorial choices from those scenes. So Sid is watching a screen where we get the cut from Farouk to future Sid, and you get the pans and the music, and it's like...
Yeah, it's interesting that Sid's memory isn't framed from her own POV.
No, it's
like
framed
behind her tastefully to hide any nudity.
I'm like, who's filming this? Is she watching Legion? Should we ask her for her take? It's always been a weird thing for me, but like, again, they did announce an extra episode, so we should have expected maybe some callbacks to older scenes and stuff like that. It has
seemed to me that ever since that extra episode was announced, and maybe even a bit before, we've gotten a lot of repeated scenes. Right. You know, like, they didn't need to stage Sid's, you know, that whole scene with Melanie in such a way that they're watching the scenes. But it's cheaper to replay old scenes than shoot new ones.
Right, or at least not have the entire scene play out, right? Like when Farouk finds out that David in the future is the threat, we basically get his whole reaction over again. The whole, you know, thing about, oh, you know, for thousands of years I was the bad guy, which is an interesting scene, and it was a great scene when it happened, but I don't know if we needed it hammered home again. Certainly Sid did, but I don't know. I feel like you're right in terms of, hey, here's an opportunity to not spend some money, show something that we already have in the can.
I'm really looking forward to when Noah and Nathaniel get to talk about like what was going on creatively, why those decisions were made, what they had to do to pull it together. And speaking of pulling it together, I hope that they can pull it together for the finale, because at this point, I don't even know what a win would look like.
That's fair.
Like, who are we rooting for here? I mean, I guess it's safe to still root against Farouk, but are we really rooting for David? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think like a happy outcome looks like?
Based on what we know so far, and based on what this episode has set us up to believe, is that if Farouk wins, it's a bad situation. And if David wins, there will be a bad situation in the near, not too distant future. I think there is no way out of that unless there is something that happens in the end game that can sway David back to the side of good. And I don't know if that comes in any other form than Sid. So something obviously needs to happen between Sid and David in order for this season not to end on a total downer, where it's like, yes, Farouk has been defeated, but sooner or later we will get World Killer Legion David.
Maybe Amy is what saves love for David.
That would put more emphasis on that whole episode we saw, where the point of it was with the multiple Davids and where the point of it was the importance of Amy and her role in steering David on a path that wasn't completely evil. The one evil David we saw in that scenario treated Amy like garbage. He gave her a nosebleed, famously. I think that you're right in assuming that maybe Amy plays a bigger role than we think.
I've just discovered hope. I've just discovered hope. An emotional core is still there in the show. We didn't see it in this episode. We didn't see Amy at all, but she's still in there, we're told. So there is still love left in Legion.
I'm going after him.
Because of what I just said?
Because love is what we have to save if we're going to save the world.
Well, I think that's as good a time as any to wrap up this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to be back next Wednesday to talk about the finale. We'll be talking about the season as a whole.
We should tease this other idea we have. We want to know what pilots you guys are looking forward to seeing.
Yes,
right?
New shows.
What new shows you're going to see. We want to start doing like reviews of pilots, kind of like on a fly or fail basis. Like, are we going to watch this or not?
And based on if you guys like it or if we like it, maybe we turn those pilots into a Watch Club series all their own. Let us know what you think. Let us know if there's any upcoming new series that you want us to cover. And guys, stay weird, keep it in the comments, and see you next week.
See you in the comments.